Okay, so this is going to be a tutorial on how to properly do Sea Needle in BFBB. So Sea Needle has become one of those things that like people just kind of neglect to learn at this point, like new people getting into the game. And even some people that like started running the game around when I started, like haven't even taken the time to perfect Sea Needle. Without cruise boosting, obviously. Cruise boost Sea Needle is like a whole other story, and I'm not teaching that right now because it only saves like 12 seconds if you do it perfectly. So yeah, like nowadays I see a lot of people just like taking Sea Needle segments that are losing like 30 seconds and being like, okay, this is a good Sea Needle, but I guess just a lot of people neglected to learn it for whatever reason. So we're going over it. You want to get to this first hook as fast as possible. So when you get on the bungee hook on the controller, I'm holding like down right for a bit, and then I'm gonna be tapping it down right a little bit and adjusting my angle because you want to hit the first tikis right here. You want to aim for the purple floating tikis in the Sea Needle. So the goal is to hit this tiki stack and then drift back to the left and do a dive down and hit both of these other two. So yeah, this is just the fastest way of doing the first bungee. Like no matter what cycle you're... Like with normal Sea Needle, like people have all kinds of cycles that they do. Like there's JB's cycle, there's a couple other people's cycles. But yeah, that's how you should be starting out the first bungee, optimally. Holding down right until I hit the first floating tiki and then drifting back to the left and doing a dive down, like straight down without holding much direction on the stick. Sometimes you have to adjust the stick and like make yourself go down more, or like this way more, I guess, like relatively south more. As soon as you see that you hit all the floating tikis, you need to press B and get off the bungee hook. So like hitting this tartar bot is kind of an artifact of like the old routes where like we needed the shinies from him. Like you don't necessarily have to do this. You can just kind of go straight to here if you want. But you kind of risk getting hit by this guy, and you also don't lose time doing this because we wait for a music cue to jump on the second bungee hook. So like I personally do this just to like set myself up for the cycle precisely. Because I'm going to hit this guy into the death pit over here and then walk around to the bungee hook, and I'm going to still make it in time. So yeah, in categories where you have the bubble bowl, you can bowl into these. I guess like most people that run this game would know, but if you bowl into like these kinds of cutscenes right here, you actually save time because you're getting the acceleration of the bowl, and that's propelling you into the cutscene. But you're watching this cutscene during the end lag of the bubble bowl, so you don't actually have to lose time by watching the end lag. So if your movement is kind of sloppy getting up to these points, or like your movement just isn't as good in general, like doing a bubble bowl into these cutscenes for the second and third bungees can kind of help you in getting to these cycles optimally. It's not absolutely necessary, and obviously in categories like ALS where you don't have the bubble bowl, like you can't do this, so your movement has to be better. But yeah, it is an option for like Hundo if you're running Hundo. You want to be mashing the bowl button to get into these because these checkpoints eat a B input. So if you just press B once, you're going to clear the checkpoint text and not get a bubble bowl. So that's important. So here I use a music cue here to do this bungee. So I'll try and hum along with it. Let me try that again. Get it? Let's do it again. Grab. It should line up exactly with the music. You should be jumping up there in line with the music cue you're listening to. Jump, jump, grab. You can kind of hear like the instrument in the background as well. Like I'll try just humming just the music. So yeah, like that's just personally what I use to align myself on the cycle. Like you can come up with your own kinds of cues to do it if you want. Like I know when Purple was running this game, he would do kind of like a little loop around here, like turn around quick and then jump in to kind of align himself with the cycle because he didn't like using the music cue. But yeah, you kind of have some time to burn getting from the first bungee to the second bungee. It's not much, as you can see. Like, if you look how long I'm waiting, you really don't have that much leeway. It's like a second or something. Bump, bump, grab. So here, you want to be, like, tapping to the left a little bit. You don't want to be holding left, because you're going to end up, like, over here, and you're going to hit the Thunder Tiki. And that's going to completely mess up the cycle. Because your goal is to hit the floating tikis here to make like all the ones on top of them fall down, basically. But if you hit this Thunder Tiki, you're going to have like way less control of your drifting. And that's going to mean like you're not going to be on cycle. Because the goal is to like get the glitch where you get infinite dives here. So if you don't know what that is, basically if you're like, I guess I'll just wait for this. So right here, if we go frame by frame, when you get your head stuck on a tiki above you, for some reason the game just gives you your dives back because it's thinking that like you're at the top of the bungee hook. So this is important because it means all we have to do after getting this glitch activated is go above the tiki and then just go straight down onto it, as opposed to like floating all the way back up to the top and then going all the way back down. It's like that. See right here, I'm tapping to the left, and then as I'm about to hit this tiki, you want to go back to the right and hit this one. And then on your way down, even still, you want to like dive into this one as well. So your stick angles on this second bungee are really important here. Let's go back. Left, 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 down, right, right. Left, 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 down, right, right, dive, hold left. And then go back around, dive back down to hit the tiki. Good second bungee. So here, this is kind of like a little preference thing I do. I like to do my spin early to hit this guy. You don't necessarily need to kill this robot, but it makes it easier because he can't hit you at all. And it doesn't lose time. But I like to do my spin early because it's harder to turn around at the end of a spin. So like you see there, I turned around when I wasn't doing a spin. Because if you spin too late, then you'll be like stuck in the spin and you'll get a slower turnaround and lose. Like it'll make making the cycle harder, which is why I do that. You need to cut this corner tight. You need to like stay along the insides here and have good movement to the third bungee in order to make it. If this fish is blocking you here, you can choose to go around her if you think you can still make the cycle. So you kind of need to react to the RNG here a little bit. Because if this fish is blocking you, if she's like right here, then you can't bowl into this part. And you risk not making the cycle. So again, I use a music cue for this part. Oh, I paused it. Jump, jump, grab. So you want to get that grab like as soon as the on the music starts again. So yeah, that's just another thing that I use. So like, because there's not really much indication at this point for where you are in the cycle besides the music cue. Because there's obviously like the RNG factors. The chuck in between the second and third bungee is always going to spawn at a different spot. So your manipulation to avoid the missile is always going to be a little bit different. And this fish right here can be blocking you, like I said. So you kind of need to be using the music cue here for the third bungee to know where you are in the cycle. Because there's really nothing else you could use. So yeah, that's just what I like. So as soon as you get in here, if you're on cycle, you want to be tapping to the right to hit that Thunder Tiki, like touch up against it, but not actually hit it. If you're holding right too much, you'll just hit the Tiki, and it'll make this part at the bottom a lot slower. That was like a weird setup in this room. You want to hit this Thunder and activate it, not actually like destroy it. You want to hit the floating purple Tiki like right below it. And ideally you would drift like far enough to the right to hit this floating Tiki right here on your way down. So what I did in this run is still fine. I ended up holding up too much, so I got stopped by this Tiki. But it's still fine because when you do your dive right here, you can still hit this Tiki. And if you miss it, then you would just get it on the way back up from this part right down here. So there's backup strats for this part. If you get the top part correctly, then you've basically gotten like a pretty fast third cycle here. So the goal is you want to hit this Tiki on your way back down. And if we go back a couple frames, so I hit the Thunder, I activate the Thunder. Sorry about that. You activate the Thunder like on your way down to hitting this Tiki, which is very important. If you didn't get this Thunder, you would have to get it on your way back up, and that's a little bit harder. And you could just miss it because the cycle might not be the same. So it's important that if we back up a little bit, the goal at this point is you want to hit this floating Tiki and activate this Thunder on your way down with this dive. And ideally hit this purple right here, which is what I did in this run. And then right here, you need to like stay under these wood Tikis as they're falling to get the infinite bungee glitch again. Because that's important, because otherwise you're just going to float all the way up to the top again. It's really slow. So now you want to be just going up to the top, and you want to be holding kind of like to the right and upright a little bit, because you want to, well, maybe not more so upright, kind of just like right is what you want, because you need to go back down and get those Tikis, because that's the only one we don't get with this strat. So we go up, and then we need to go back down and get this one. You can actually hit this Thunder, and it's fine, instead of just hitting the floating Tiki. Like, if you hit both the Thunder and the floating Tiki, it's fine, because we're just going to leave this bungee right after anyway, and we've already got the cycle at this point. So let me just show a fluid third bungee again, and kind of describe the stick angles at the same time. Tapping right, holding right, down and left, back to the right, holding right, getting this Tiki. Perfect. So yeah. Nice. So as you see there, like, I paused when I got the sound cue for leaving this bungee hook. which is how Shift has been splitting this segment in 100%. Because of Cruise Boost Needle, there's some variance in here, so this is just where he splits. This is where I split now. Like these splits are kind of outdated. But nowadays this is where I split as well for consistency. So leaving the bungee hook at 110 is really good. That's like what you want. You can get like 108s, I think, if you're like really good at the third bungee. If you get like an ideal one, you can hit more tikis hit like another tiki with a different strat, but that's a lot harder and a lot less consistent. You can also do a thing, if you get like all of these, you can just go to the right and hit this thunder like on your way back up if you're like really good at this, but I don't think it's as consistent. Like you essentially get all the tikis in like one dive and it saves the time of having to dive back down. But that's like way more precise. So I don't advise going for it. Pretty much nobody does go for it because just doing it with 2 dives is super consistent. So yeah, a 110 leaving the bungee hook is super solid. Like, if you make a mistake on the third bungee, you can get like a 115 or something at worst. Like if you miss the dive back down to the last thunder, you'll have to like go back up and you can get like a 115 leaving the bungee hook and it's fine. Like that's what I would call like anything like sub 112 or so is like really good. Anything that's like sub 117 or something is what I would call like acceptable. If you're getting like 120s, then you might need like that's probably if you get like a 120 something, you're probably making the cycle for getting to the third bungee, but you're like messing up the ending part, which is fine. It just takes some practice to get that consistent, and you can start getting better times for this segment. But anything higher than that, like it's pretty much just like not knowing the cycle or like having learned a slower cycle initially instead of learning this cycle. But yeah, if you're getting like worse than that, it's just pretty much like going for this and not knowing the cycle is what it comes down to. So Sea Needle, you can save a ton of time on Sea Needle just from learning the cycle. Like if you see my gold and with these splits, this is my gold like after getting the spatula and like warping away. Like I can go ahead. Like a 125 is like really solid. Like you can get like if a good like an optimal Sea Needle time with this, like where I split in this run, like warping out of here is like a 122 or like something like that, something crazy, like 3 seconds faster. But yeah, anything like sub 127 is what I would call like a pretty good Sea Needle. Just in general, because this is generally like how we split this in like Hundo, or how most people would split it, as opposed to like splitting on the bungee hook, which is what I've started doing. Nice. But yeah, like it's so odd to me that like people haven't really been learning how to do Sea Needle properly in recent years. Because like around the time when I started is like I've noticed that ever since like my generation of people learning this game, like ever since then there's just been a huge drop off in terms of like the people that have been working on perfecting Sea Needle and saving this time. Because there's like some really good runners that will just take like 150 Sea Needles and be happy with that. And so I hope that this gives people the opportunity to properly learn how to do Sea Needle and save a whole bunch of time in their runs. Because while Sea Needle is a long segment and it has some boring elements in it, and it has some dumb things that can happen with like missing tikis by being like pixels off, like that does happen, but in general, like I would say the large majority of like time loss in C Needle from a lot of players just comes from not knowing the cycle. So I hope this encourages more people to work on their C Needle and learn the cycle. If you're going to like practice this on your own, you need to set up a save file that hasn't entered C Needle yet, because if I can go back in the video here, you want this opening cutscene here, because this is what properly sets up. So you want the cutscene and the crabs text box there, so that you can properly get the cycle set up. Because if you don't do that, then your music cycle and your Tiki cycles are going to be like way off. And so yeah, obviously like learning that is possible off of like a reload cycle, but I don't even know how to do that. I haven't practiced how to do C Needle off a reload, and I imagine there's a small number of people that have, because it's not very applicable to runs. So yeah, like in a run, obviously you're gonna get this checkpoint, and you're gonna get, or not the checkpoint, the cutscene and the crabs text box. So you want to be practicing C Needle with a practice file that hasn't entered. You want to go through the C Needle with this cutscene and the text box to properly practice it. So yeah, I hope everybody has good luck in learning C Needle. I'm gonna show at the end here like a fluid C Needle, and just kind of show the whole thing in one go. So here we go. Nice. Holy shit. That's a 100%.